Mexico. It's a country with a history of constant change. It's the 10th largest by area and 13th largest by population, with over 130 million citizens. But those are just numbers on a page. I truly believe you can't understand a people without understanding its history, language, and food. I won't spend too much time on their history because we could talk all day and night just about the events of the last 200 years. Artifacts from Mexico's history have been found as far back as 8,000 years ago. The Olmecs, Toltecs, Mayans, Incas, and Aztecs all shared this land at one time or another until the Spanish arrived in 1521. The colonial era lasted for almost 300 years until the Mexican War for Independence in 1821. This would be the first of many modern wars the Mexican people would fight over the next 200 years. Next came the Mexican-American War, then the French Intervention, the Mexican Revolution, and even their involvement in World War II, where they attacked German vessels and caught spies in their borders. They even had a squadron of fighter pilots trained by the U.S. Air Force and deployed to the Philippines. From the 1920s to the year 2000, they had an almost one-party rule with the PRI, or Institutional Revolutionary Party when translated. After 71 years of leading the country, they finally lost in the year 2000 to the National Action Party. The economy of Mexico is primarily made up of tourism, manufacturing, and agriculture. What you might not know is that Mexico produces more cars than the US or Canada. Lastly, the geography that makes the country up. Mexico is unique in that it touches both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The land is incredibly diverse with beaches, deserts, mountains, forests, and even a few volcanoes. So why are these things important? History, agriculture, politics, geography, all shape this society as a whole. It's hard to talk about one without recognizing the impact on the others. So they also help us understand the problems Mexico faces in the present because of these factors. At the end of the day, all an entrepreneur is someone who sees a problem and tries to find a solution. An example of this is actually in my talk with Genaro about the mezcal crisis happening right now. These dang Americans are drinking all of Mexico's mezcal, and it's causing farmers to burn through their supply of agave faster than they can grow it. Problem: these agave plants are very picky on where they'll grow and tend to not do very well when farmed. The solution? Genaro is working with a local university to figure out how to grow these agave varieties more sustainably and quicker to meet demand. You'll hear more about that later in this video. I had the pleasure of staying right in between the Roma Norte and La Condesa parts of Mexico City. I'm no food writer, but you can clearly tell the influence such a wide variety of cultures mixing in one place can have on one city. Walk down a street, you see Lebanese shawarma-inspired tacos, ramen, authentic street tacos, and even a Krispy Kreme all in the same block. None of this is surprising since Mexico City has a history of being a country of refuge. From Europe, Africa, and Asia, people have flocked to Mexico for safety over the last 200 years. And with the mixing of cultures comes the mixing of foods and traditions. What's Indian food taste like with Mexican spices? How about tacos with a Mediterranean influence? You can find it all here. So what's the entrepreneurial scene like? As we begin our study on what it takes to build a startup community, let's start with a few knowns. A modern city is obviously a prerequisite. Check. Affordable real estate, wide selection of banks, reliable public transportation, and not to mention great weather, which isn't actually a part of the necessities, but it sure helps. Mexico has even had its own version of Shark Tank since 2016, so they're on the right path, but it might be easier to work backwards and find out what they're missing. So with that, let's meet these founders. You've been here.
Sure, thanks first of all, Grant, for this invitation. My name is Genaro Rios, and I'm the project manager of Impact Hub Mexico City, and I'm also the founder of Mezcal Casa Antequera. Those two are like my biggest projects right now.
I like it. All right, so let's start off with mezcal and tequila first. I want to hear about that. How did you get started with that?
Well, that started like a passion project because I really love drinking mezcal. So I wanted like to find a way for me drinking mezcal to be something sustainable. So I also have like a little like a hotel in Roma Norte called Casa Antequera, and I offer my guests a little bit of mezcal. So I started buying mezcal that I liked from the stores, and then I was like, why am I doing this? I should like do connections with local providers and help them. So I start selling mezcal from these local providers, and then I was like, why don't I like make my own brand out of this and sell my own mezcal? Tequila is a type of mezcal, you know.
Okay.
Any like I don't know the word in English, but in Spanish it's called destilado. I don't know, like vodkas and like tequilas and mezcales, you know, these strong alcohols.
Yeah, like how it's distilled.
Distilled, exactly. Mezcal is distilled from agave. So that includes tequila, that includes distilled from pulque, that includes all the tequilas from Espadín, from Tobalá, from a lot of different kind of agaves. So the thing about tequila is that it's a specific type of mezcal, you know, that has an origin denomination, has to come from only tequila and arandas, has to make from blue agave. But it is like if we start calling, I don't know, mezcales from young producers from one type of agave, let's say Espadín, like let's call them that mezcal Sanchez, and then only Sanchez can be Espadín, and then that's a kind of new tequila for saying so. But all of them are mezcales. Gotcha. So
every tequila is a mezcal, but not every mezcal is a tequila.
Exactly. And you can have, like you said, mezcales from a lot of interesting subjects, because the type of agave that you can like plant in a sustainable way is only like Espadín and like agave azul. But from the wild ones, let's say Tobalá, let's say Jabalí, let's say Mexicano, Arroqueño, all of those you cannot like harvest them. They grow natural, like
you just gotta let it.
Yeah, and some of them, like the Jabalí, takes like 20 years to grow. So if you start like doing all of them mezcal, then we're going to be out of those species of agave really soon. So a really interesting thing that my brand is trying to support is that there's like a university called Universidad de Chapingo. That's a really like renowned university in terms of agricultural techniques and things like that. They have a campus on Oaxaca, on Cimatlán de los Álvarez, and they do micropropagation of wild species of agave. So they are doing some preservation effort for these wild types of agave, so they don't like extinct.
Are they doing it like in a lab setting, or do they have like a field? Or?
They have both. They are start like doing it on a lab to grow the plantulas, the small little plants. And then they transport them to an invernadero.
Gotcha.
And they start growing them, and then they have like deals with some local agricultures, so they give them the big plants, so they start growing them again, and they are going to make mezcal out of them anyway, but in a sustainable way.
Very much so. Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a member of Impact Hub in Houston. That's how I found out about this one.
Cool.
And I wanted to hear, as the director of this one in Mexico City, what's happening down here? What are you guys working on? What's the typical like startup or nonprofit that works out of here? Tell me about it.
Sure. Well, Impact Hub, we have our like two ways of doing impact. We have the physical space where we host social ventures or social startups. We have some really cool startups and companies that we're hosting. Like, for example, B Corp Mexico works in Impact Hub Mexico City. We have a company called Intrare, so they make a bond between vulnerable population, mainly refugees, and working opportunities in Mexico City. And we have a lot of like really cool organizations that are working in Impact Hub in the physical space. But my job as a project manager of all the programs that we have is more about the programs that we have in Impact Hub. And the programs that we have are focused on being inclusive entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, like impact entrepreneurship. You know, we believe that we have to make this entrepreneurship ecosystem a lot more inclusive. That means that most of our projects, even though we're Impact Hub Mexico City, most of our projects are outside Mexico City because we want to bring this ecosystem closer to other communities and to other areas. So we work a lot in Oaxaca, we work a lot in Chiapas, we work a lot in Yucatan. Now we have a really big project in Puebla. And what we look for is that we want to bring all this social capital and also economical capital to these populations that have been historically denied from this ecosystem. If it's for their skin tone or for gender or from geographic location or from their wealth, their studies, you know, all these things are things that can like work for you or against you, depending on what's your position in life. But we want to bring this ecosystem closer to all this population that we have identified. And the things that brings all impact hubs together is social impact, you know, like in entrepreneurship with impact. So we also support a lot of ventures, a lot of startups, a lot of projects that are early stage projects. So we want them to survive the 2-year like
kind of figuring it out phase.
Valley, So they can support that because, as you know, those are the years where most of the entrepreneurs
they die.
So that's where all the talent like fades away, you know. So we focus on early stage, and we also focus on entrepreneurships or ideas or projects that are also making an environmental or social impact for their communities.
I like it. You know, I've only been here about a week, a little bit of a week now. And it's my first time being in Mexico City. Honestly, blown away by the perfect weather here. It's been amazing weather the entire time. I got like a little bit of drizzle, but besides that, it's been clear skies. It's like because of the altitude and everything, it's felt like it's between like 70 and 80 degrees the entire time I'm here. It feels awesome. I'm in t-shirts and sweatpants and every day. I feel great. So I love that. Love walking at night. It feels super safe. I think a lot of people in the US and around the world that haven't even thought of coming to Mexico City would be shocked at how like modern everything here is. I really can't think of any like modern amenity that I would want in the US that I couldn't find here, you know? Which leads me to kind of my next question of kind of the ecosystem. And there seems to be a number of factors that startup ecosystems need to really thrive. And there's that kind of gap between, you know, what makes Silicon Valley and Austin and, you know, Miami, these places that have blown up in entrepreneurship recently versus a Mexico City that on paper seems to have everything that they have. It's just in a different geographic location. So I'd like your perspective on what do you think are some things that are kind of missing from this area? Is it like university studies? Is it culture? Is it like there's just a lack of VC funding? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think there's like with every problem, like multiple factors.
Obviously, there's no one answer for this.
But I will say like I don't know, in terms of social entrepreneurship or like building social enterprises. Mexico in general, like I mean, Mexico City is way more advanced than other states of Mexico in terms of social entrepreneurship, and even that consider we're still like on diapers, you know, in terms of worldwide what it is to be like a social entrepreneur, what it means, like so we still have like most of the working class in Mexico are working. I don't know, like on the non-formal sector, you know, of the economy. So when we have that problem, you know, thinking about social entrepreneurship and like being sustainable and the World Pact and all these like kind of global indicators like fade away, you know, because
Yeah.
you first need to have like a strong, a solid, a functioning entrepreneurship ecosystem in general, so people can like make their dreams come true in terms of I have an idea, I want to make this a company, I want to make this a project, I want to live out of this idea or project or service or product that I like, that I want to build. So I think first thing is that, you know, most of the population in Mexico, in the country, you know, lives in poverty, you know, more than 50%, some kind of poverty, you know, not extreme poverty, but some kind of poverty. So that also, like, it's really where you need to connect the markets, you know. If you only have Mexico City and Guadalajara and Puebla and Monterrey, you know, you need an internal market that is also strong, so you can have these all the conditions that you need to build a successful startup, to build a successful idea. And I also think that we lack like a hub for saying so. Like all the examples that you were giving, and you know, it not only happens in tech startups and things like that, but I don't know, like you can see it like with the grunge in Seattle, you know, they start growing bands over there with that kind of ideology, you know.
Yeah.
We need that, you know, so more startups or more things like that start like growing out of Mexico, because we do have like unicorns and things like that, but when you see like who these people are, where did they study, where did they get their funding, they're like startups that are really cool, but that are like mainly funded in Y Combinator, in I don't know, like acceleration programs outside Mexico, and in the United States, in Europe, in other parts of the world. So they start building
there, and you kind of just hope they come back here to kind of reinvest in the community.
Exactly. We don't have that Silicon Valley of I don't know, this effervescence of a lot of startup projects, tech-based, that they can share things and like grow together. I think that's a really cool thing that they build in San Francisco, and they're trying to build something similar in Miami. It's really interesting, you know, because it have blown away all this tech-based business, because a lot of the venture capital only invest in tech-based business, you know. I have just been in the Latin American Forum of Impact Investment in Mérida, Yucatan, and it's really interesting to hear about what are all these venture capital investing in. And a lot of them are investing in tech-based projects and startups with tech climate or tech food or tech agriculture, you know, things like that are really like growing right now. But I don't know, like in the specific case of Mexico City, this is a bubble, you know. This is like you said, you can like be. It's a generally safe city, you know. You can really be safe in Mexico City. You can travel. You can like, I don't know, talk with your iPhone and like be working with your Mac in a park, and that's gonna be okay, you know. But that's not the case of the rest of Mexico, you know. So we need to connect with this country as big as it is, you know, and start thinking globally and start thinking about escalating the projects. Something interesting, like you said, is we have a lot of small businesses, you know, and the idea of someone in Mexico to have a business is to have that, you know, to have a small shop or a small store when you can sell like I don't know, like small products or something like that, and that's it, you know. You never think about, or your escalating idea is just, well, if my store is going really well, then I'm just going to open another one, you know, and that's going to be the way I'm going to grow all my life. So,
But the idea of, well, let me go and get a loan from a bank and open up 100 doesn't
yeah,
come about.
exactly. And a lot of something really interesting about that is that we work with the entrepreneurial mindset in Impact Hub Mexico City. We have a talk about how you can grow a family business into a startup or into something bigger, you know? How do we work with the entrepreneurial mindset of all the people that we work with? Because a lot of people think correctly that this ecosystem is only for people with privileges, that have money, that come from certain universities, that have some studies outside Mexico, all these things that are gonna help you a lot, you know, if you want to build a startup. So they don't even like bother or think that that can be an option for them to grow or to have like social mobility. So that's why we believe that that's important to have that mindset to start with, so you can build a business thinking that that business can be escalated, can be something else than what it is right now.
Yeah.
Well, the university that has like the flag for entrepreneurship in Mexico, it's called Tec de Monterrey. But as famous as it is, and you know, as good as they are doing in terms of building entrepreneurs out of their universities, it's far from a Babson College, or it's far from all these other universities or examples that you just mentioned. I don't know why, like, I think that a lot of things have to happen for this like soup to be well cooked, and some ingredients that are totally lacking in the Mexican ecosystem is, I don't know, like the government, for example. You know, I really don't like to blame government for things, because you start like at some point you stop like asking for things for the government.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, that's just not gonna happen. But one thing is that things are not gonna happen, and another is to work against you. You know?
Yeah.
So we used to have like an institute that supports entrepreneurs in Mexico City, and on this administration it disappeared, and it didn't like got replaced by anything else. So a lot of that ecosystem, like the government is a big player on this soup that I was talking about, you know, and so we don't have that support now out of the government. We definitely don't have it as in also a local sphere of government. So we're on our own, you know. We're like.
Is it more like the government just being incompetent, or like corrupt, or like too much regulation?
There is too much regulation. If you want to build a business in Mexico, there's a lot of steps that you have to follow in order to be completed. Also, I don't know, the actual administration is focused on other projects that doesn't include at all supporting new startups or supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Mexico. So all the support that we used to have from some institutions disappeared on this administration. You know, with this, I'm not saying that past administrations were better, you know, in any way, but at least we have that, you know, and now we're totally on our own.
So, I mean, it's been a fucking gone through, you know, just like any early stage startup.
And then you got
downs. And so we went and launched a beta product of essentially what I was talking about, which is writing sales playbooks for any target audience. And went and tested that and got about 30 beta users. Super exciting. The feedback we heard, especially from product marketers, was like, this is great. The feedback we heard from sales reps who are actually consuming a lot of this content is like, yes, I love this, but how do we take this a step further? How do we bring this into like the conversation that I'm having every day with the new prospect and so we took that feedback, and now what insights during that meeting, and then doing all the follow-up actions after that, which we can then use AI to feed back into the next meeting that I have with Graham. And it helps the sales representative better serve the customer as well. Because like, as a customer, what you want is you want to get the best service, right? You want to be sold a product that would truly help them, right? And by being better prepared for the meeting and how to answer the questions, right, they can better serve you as well and be more present. You're not like sitting there taking notes during a call or looking at 3 different screens trying to like find information during the meeting. So that's what we're currently building.
I think
This work has a
why do I have to explain
this
this stuff?
different system
Like you're
where I
a
would
kid,
log
like-
into your system and then take my meeting virtually.
Depends on the platform. So,
Really brought me like
oh,
I don't think so.
yes, we integrate Teams, Meet, and Zoom. And so those, like, Meet, for example, is an
I don't think so,
instant.
yeah.
Zoom,
Like
for
as
example,
adults, it's like a
is an
different,
app.
like kind of
Like Zoom has an app in
relationship.
place. And then there's actual flight platforms as well. So yeah, so that's what we're building. Well, it's easier to build a product for the same use case regardless of the industry. So it's actually not that hard to build a product that for an SDR that's selling into like financial services versus an SDR that's selling into like government. The harder part is how do you want to expand beyond sales and say maybe go into like partner managers that are also speaking and like selling their API or they're selling some type of partnership with another company. How you adapt a similar AI model to that different type of meeting. Or like if you have an internal meeting, like a product marketer is going to have a different internal meeting than a sales rep will externally. So we're still figuring out like, right now we'll definitely we'll be like vertically integrated, target sales. Well, I guess maybe that's horizontal. Depends how you think about it. Like, targeting one role and one like job to be done.
Everyone else is old,
And then we
married, they have
will end up
kids.
went back to LA. I was living in LA at the time, and at my lease, I quit Google. Started on this, came out like feeling really great. Super excited because I just got like my first validation from VC, and my lease was up like January 30th in LA.
Like headed more to.
And honestly, like. LA's expensive. Like I was, I was like, I put aside a specific amount of money that I was willing to spend personally in order to go to do this venture. Because although I got like funding, it was better suited for other places like development. Versus like paying myself a salary. And so my lease was up, and I don't know. I was kind of like, well, let's go spend a month someplace, right? This is a great time to do it. I can work remotely, maybe I'll get some inspiration from someone else. And so Mexico City was kind of a natural choice because I have a dog. It's not that far from home, Michigan. I've always wanted to improve my Spanish.
Have you been here before you came?
I was actually here in November, so after I finished Antler, I came here for 2 weeks because I had a friend who worked at Google that was here for like 2 months, and I came and stayed with him for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I can totally do this, right? Like, I don't know, good coffee, lots of green. Yeah, there are coffee shops everywhere. I mean, people are like really welcoming, and yeah, so I was like, it was a great experience, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do this for a month. And so I booked an Airbnb, flew here,
They're raised up to 16,
and
18.
brought my dog Tucker. And I spent a month here, and about halfway through, I was like, I should extend this. Like, there's nothing at this point that's like really making me come back to LA. I mean, you live in a little bit of a bubble here. That's it. Like, a lot of foreigners, a lot of people speak English. It's pretty fluid. It's very safe. It's beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like moving to a different city in the U.S., honestly. But with a whole new culture and new people around you, and I don't know. It was exciting. Like I found
New place.
The first time I heard about that,
the Mexican people, like Mexicans in general, to be extremely inviting and just very willing to go out of their way to, invite you places. I would meet somebody and they would, say, hey, having a dinner next Friday, you should come. And yeah, it's been great.
what is it called again?
I haven't made a lot of startup friends. Most of the people that, well, okay, I haven't made a lot of tech friends. What I have met are a lot of people that are Mexican and they run their own business. And that's one of the big things that I saw here, that I realized is a lot. It's very easy to have. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but there are a lot more like small local businesses that you see. And like an example of that could be like architect. Like my boyfriend's an architect, so he has an architecture business, right? He'll go and design somebody's home, or work on a building, or build a building. And I have another friend that runs like a computer network IT company, and I don't think you see that as much in the US. Like most of the people I was surrounded by in the US were people that another tech company just like I did. Right? There weren't that many people that are like helping like small business owners. So yeah, and then as far as there's also Mexico City is so close to the US, like it's very easy to like pop in and out. So I'll have friends that come here for a month or 2 months, or
And Jamie, he really had a great
and they'll work out of Mexico City. So there's a lot of people that are also just doing their jobs from Mexico City because they can't come.
Okay, awesome. So, Fernando Corral, I'm CEO and co-founder of Gabu. Basically, we're building a platform to help parents keep their kids safe while they play video games online, especially around interactions with other persons. We do care about content, but we see that the biggest risk and where parents are less aware of the dangers are when they're communicating with other people within games. That's kind of the goal. This problem exists everywhere, so it's not just like a Latam thing, but it's like in the US, it's basically everywhere kids are kind of facing these dangers and parents are not too aware of it. So yeah, that's the elevator pitch.
I like. Talk to me more about the mental health aspect. If you saw more of that coming, what sort of mental health is it more? When I think of mental health on like tech, I think of like the Calm app and a lot of these other like meditation and some of these. Is it BetterHelp, the counseling app that you can get on your phone?
Yeah, I would say the interesting about the part that I went to the South by Southwest is not just startups. So there were like NGOs, there were like school associations. So it's kind of what we're seeing everywhere, just not in the tech space. So it was interesting to kind of share opinions where one of the partnerships we're thinking about is actually with an NGO, not so much of a startup or something like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do like across like startups with institutions and schools, and we have actually a partnership with a school in Florida. So I think there's a lot of power to be able to kind of connect with them and kind of be able to build something that can get the best of both worlds. But yeah, I would say probably started with the pandemic and just how much time we were spending online versus in person. That kind of had consequences for everyone in terms of, especially kids, in terms of education, learning, and how do they cope with certain things. So I think that's one of the reasons it has like so much drive right now. But it was really interesting to talk to different individuals.
I like it. Awesome. All right, let's take it back. I want to hear more about your startup, how it started, the history of it, what caused you to, we talked about this before, and, it's every startup, it really starts with a problem and somebody just willing to say, all right, I'll solve that. So where did you start with your problem? What are you trying to solve, and how has it gotten to where it is now?
Awesome. So, okay, I think, so basically, I started with a co-founder. He's from Guatemala. His name is Mario. He was the first that started with the idea. Before talking to him, I was thinking of building something around the edtech and the gaming space. Like, I'm a gamer. I really like playing. I think it's a superpower I have with my nephews and now my kid. It's just such an easy way to connect with them and to be able for them to open up. Because things are changing so much. I always tell people like my childhood was very similar to my dad's.
Yeah.
But my kid's childhood is going to be so different from mine that I need ways to connect. And funnily enough, video games, like they've changed, but they haven't changed that much. Like Mario Kart is still the same that it was in Super Nintendo in a way. So it's easier to relate. You can still play those games. I can actually enjoy them. So I was looking something into that. Then I met Mario through a program called Latitude, and he was kind of a similar situation. He was working in fintech as well. He was going to start up in esports, so he was thinking about gaming as well. But it all changed kind of when his 7-year-old at the time nephew got approached by someone in Roblox and started making comments of sexual nature, right? So without going too much into details, so. His nephew came to him and told him about it. So for Mario was a big shock in terms of like, how long has this been going on? Why didn't tell your parents? So he started asking a lot of questions, and when we started talking about this, we started seeing a lot of data, right? One of the things that kind of surprised us a lot was that on average, only 1 in 10 kids tell their parents if something bad happens within games. So this is basically because kids are usually more eager to play more time, and parents are like trying to keep them away from them. So if something bad happens within a game, like certain content or a bad interaction or like a topic that made them uncomfortable or whatever, they usually try to hide it because it's like, so if I tell my mom about this, and she's really not gonna let me play, right? So it's kind of a misaligned objectives. So that's the first data point we got. Then we started seeing how child predators were actually in these games, where it was easier for them to contact kids, where it was easier to hide their identities, and it was harder for somebody else to find out because parents are not, to be honest, they sometimes don't even know that kids can communicate so easily in games. Yeah. So that's been a challenge. That's gonna say, okay, this is big. There's a lot of bullying going on as well. Internet in general and the gaming communities can be really toxic, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's kind of what the kids are exposed since they're 6, 7.
Yeah, a very good point. All right, let's hop into more of the kind of business side of things. I think we can relate because I'm building my current startup is a video game startup, so we have a lot in common there. So I'd be interested in hearing more about kind of the business side of things. How are you monetizing this? Who's your target market? Have you already taken it to market? Are you still in building? All that.
Awesome. So yeah, kind of sum up to see what we're seeing in terms of macro trends. So one is kids are starting to play younger and younger at a younger age. Second one, you mentioned it already, games are becoming more immersive. Third, the social component is becoming vital, to be honest, and they're starting to play when they're 6, 7-year-old. And then additionally, we didn't talk about this, but parents are so busy, like they have so many things on their plate and they're like overwhelmed with so many things that they're having a hard time understanding like just social media by itself. So gaming for them, it's kind of like hundreds of them coming out every week. Yeah. It's much more complex. If you're a gamer, it takes a while to kind of understand the ropes and like the terminology and know what they mean. And it's like this game, but if you don't know that game, it's kind of hard to explain. So there's a learning curve, right? That a lot of parents just don't go through. And the last part I would say is that in terms of regulation, it's extremely easy for kids to go. The actual statistic is 85% of underage kids use adult-oriented chat apps that are unsupervised to play. So that's the thing, like in the app, the kid is actually an adult because he clicked in I'm over 18. So they have absolutely no filters. They can access everything in terms of content, communications, so they can go into very deep rabbit holes and things because they just type something and they'll let it do something and they'll learn to something. So kind of what we're doing, it's our theory, it's kids between 6 and 12 need a special place, a specific place for them, an environment to be able to interact and connect safely. When there's supervision, when there's like content curation, when there's encouragement to build healthy interactions where as a parent you can see how they're evolving in their social skills. We understand what they're playing and kind of get involved in it in the right way. So it's more of a point of bonding instead of a point of friction. Like I said, like my kid is only 4 years and a half, and right now everything is easy. So when he's older, there's going to be difference of opinions. He's going to not really like me because I'm saying no to things. So if I've seen it with other people that if you keep at least one hobby where you can connect easily, everything else is kind of easier. So we want at least for this not to be a point of contention in relationships, even if it's not like a bonding point, depending on the parent and the kids. And the idea is to charge parents a monthly subscription for this service, right? For them to be able to have their kids safe, to see insights in how they're playing, how they're evolving. There's a lot of things you can identify in terms of the mental health, given how they play, how they interact. There is several like specific experiences that are already been proven that if they play this, you're gonna have early signs of either good things or bad things, right? So the idea is to implement all this within the platform. So it really helps parents understand their kids, and we are positive that we can give like 10x better insights into their kids, let's say psychological profile, behavior, because of just how much time they spend playing and because everything happens online so you can analyze it. We want all that information just to stay with parents. That's what we're thinking about. We're doing actually a subscription where parents are paying, so they're the customers, so everything is kind of easy to mold in a way that keeps us safe and information doesn't go to anyone else. Yeah, so we did I want to say like first like a soft launch where we actually had coaches supervising sessions. So instead of having something automated, we basically said, okay, there's going to be someone that is like the older sister or older brother playing with younger kids, private servers, private communication, session be recorded so parents have peace of mind that they're interacting safely, that something happens they'll know. They saw a lot of value to that. I would say something that we saw was very relevant was this like guilt-free extra time for them. Like if they let them in their electronic devices but they don't know what they're doing, they're like trying to do over the shoulder supervision and who you're talking to, what are you playing, and they're like they don't feel so comfortable. But now it's like, oh, you're going to play with other kids, you're being safe, you're learning like how to interact online, how to deal with frustration. So they feel quite good to do something else. It was especially important for like the cases what either a single parent or both parents have to work and they have no option but to give their kids a gaming device until they stop working. So for them it was like a really concentrate on that, right? So that was successful. We did pricing experiments here in Latin America. We charged about between $25 and $30 a month. Parents were willing to pay it. So then we decided to all in to go for an AI supervised solution. We have been building it this year. We have a couple of weeks of actual user beta testing. So we have groups of kids playing in the US, playing in Mexico, what they like, what they don't like, what parents don't like, what would they like to see. We're just keeping building to have a good enough product to then start scaling.
I like it. One step at a time. What do you believe? I know you're in Guadalajara, but what do you believe in the Mexico as a whole startup community is lacking? What do you see in the US that should be here? Is it funding? Is it a kind of culture of technology experts? Because I believe it's the Blue People Group. I called them the Blue Man Group earlier, but the Blue People Group. They're from Mexico. They're from Monterrey, and they started their first location was in Houston. Now they just put a branch in Austin, and they're basically just web developers from Mexico, and they do a great job. So now we're seeing the technology is here, the technical skill, I should say, is here in Mexico. So you have that. Now it's just how do we make that leap from technical skill into startup mindset? So what you're doing, how do we create more use? What do you think? So I'll stop talking and I want to hear, your thoughts on the differences.
Yeah, I think we can go with a good beer or tequila talking about this for hours, but let me try to get the main points in my perspective across. I think I'm not putting them in a specific order. There's just some things that we need to change. One, it's government. Building startups, building companies in Mexico is super complex. Complex. It takes, when I wanted to open my company, to get the tax ID, that would be the equivalent in the US, I spent more than a month trying to get an appointment. When I actually got one, I had to travel by car for 3.5 hours to get somewhere, to be present, to open it and come back, and it was not the safest place in Mexico. So, and it was me really trying hard to get it. Sometimes it took a lot longer. Then there's even discussions regarding if companies can call themselves fintech without going into fines. Right? So this is a kind of discussion that we sometimes have, because is it a legal term, fintech, or is it not? Can I call my startup a fintech, or am I going to get a fine, or the government? We get into so not value-add conversations that you have to spend so much time in these kind of things.
I want to pause on that point right there. Are you saying there's the government gives fines and taxes if you declare yourself a fintech company?
The thing is, it's not even clear. For example, I think there are things that make sense, right? You cannot call yourself a bank. Okay, because if you call yourself a bank, that means that you're regulated and have certain things and mean something to society, right? Okay. So fintech, when they got the fintech law out, it was kind of, this is cool, startups, financial technology, But then it was okay, so it's that unregulated name now. So we have discussions within startup founders regarding I actually got a notice from the government that I cannot put fintech anywhere, and they're going, it was fine, it didn't tell me anything. So the thing's not even clear, and you're wasting time to see if it's a protected word. I don't know the specific name of it, but we just live so many times and so many things like that. Cash is king here in Mexico for a lot of things, because one of them is just the tax IRS is the equivalent of the IRS is everything that goes through online electronic methods. They're going to try to put tax on it. So sometimes some models they haven't even grown to be able to solve that. That's why there's so many cash around Mexico. And the people that are doing it correctly are competing with people that are not paying taxes. So it puts you in an uneven space. So there's so many things you have to do a regular business. Yeah. When you put it at a startup, it gets much more complex. So I would say there's a lot of things to do there. Our stock exchange is very liquid. It's really hard to get companies to do IPO here compared to places like Brazil that have done a much better job. So I would say that one. I want to spend too much time on that one. Then I would say we need to find this virtuous cycle of the first exits and having founders that are already on the other side, being angel investors and advisors and mentors and becoming general partners, and all this cycle of how I'm seeing in the US where like you can have like a godfather, like someone that already is in his Series C or D, and kind of invest in you as a pre-seed startup founder, and kind of helps you connection and kind of gives you that push of trust, and people say, okay, this guy is for real, this founder is for real. So that's the other things I think we're missing. Yeah, in general, from the investor sides, like traditional money, it's really hard to convince people here in Mexico to spend 2-5% in high risk, high reward type of investments. So because they haven't seen it, right? What you see, one of the examples that gets used a lot in the US is Uber, right? Somebody just got crazy rich because they invested at the right time in Uber and somewhere else. Maybe they're gonna do it, but right now, I had an experience with someone here that has a lot of money, like a lot of money. And we spent so much time talking about if he wanted to invest $10,000, that by the end of the last call, I told him, look, like your time is worth more than what you're thinking about spending. Like, I don't know what we're doing. It's like, it's a conviction where they want to be sure they're not like, this is a bet, like this is a moonshot. Like you might get 100, 1,000x or zero, but spending, like overthinking this, you're never going to invest in startups because there's risk, there's unknowns. Otherwise, there won't be this really high possible upside, right? So yeah, that's sort of like my first thoughts, right?
You bring up points.
Yeah, 2 points. I think one of them also kind of the successful, let's say, founders that we have here, they're still at a stage where they are so busy that they're just 100% focused on their startup. We haven't had like people that are like, we have a couple like Bismarck level here in Guadalajara that came after being like an early employee of Google, but let's say homegrown, like already the startup is kind of like IPO'd already, that we don't have that many. And other thing that I also, and I can talk more about personal experience here, it's kind of like Maslow's pyramid. So in a way, the country needs to get to a certain level of, let's say, middle to high income families, where people are more willing to take risks. So what I mean by that is, so my dad was the oldest of a family of 6, and he was the only one that was able to travel outside of their hometown to study university. He spent 38 years working at Nestle. For all intents and purposes, was a very successful careers. He was able to provide to his family. We had an awesome education, best schools in Mexico. Kind of when I was deciding what to study, his mindset was more about, look, this works, this can give you like a very good floor, safe career, you can like give your kids an awesome life, a better life, you can like, so that's kind of the mindset, right? Because I was thinking about studying like physics or math, and in Mexico that was like, at that time was like, oh, you're gonna be a teacher will pay. There wasn't the idea of should be, because at the end of the day you have a floor and you can go to something that can be stable, where I feel a lot of people in the US kind of have that. At least it's not, if you don't have a good job here in Mexico, you can have a really hard time. So I think just being able to kind of take these big risks, big reward type of bets early on, it was very common. At least, like, I'm an old founder, so I kind of just met this type of environments when I was, I would say, in my 30s, not in my 20s. So I think it also helps that people are starting to get this mindset when I go to events from like university and they're doing things and they're thinking about it. Now the interesting thing is they can take the leap and actually put the effort, because in university also at school, but building things is really, really hard. So so I think that's also relevant, and I think that's kind of changing somewhat. But still, we have a long ways to go as a country.
It's been a trip. New friends, delicious food, and beautiful architecture are only a few of the great things I found here in Mexico City. Next time I'll have to visit Guadalajara in person. Even my Spanish improved, but please don't test me on that. So what have we learned on this trip? We got into this with Genaro and Fernando, but the key ingredients that seem to be missing here are previous winners, venture capital, and overregulation. Think back to episode 1. HP was one of the first trailblazers in Silicon Valley. They proved that you could start a company, get funded, and grow to unicorn status in Silicon Valley. Their entire business was the proof of concept for startups in Silicon Valley. Every community needs a first winner. In case you've never heard the story of Roger Bannister, now is a great time to look it up for more details, but here's the summary. He was the first man to ever run a mile in under 4 minutes in 1954. This feat was previously thought to be impossible. Not an easy feat at all, but now that Roger had done it, he proved it could be done again. Now for the punchline. It took a whole 2 months after Roger broke the record for 2 more athletes to break the 4-minute barrier. 2 months for 2 people to do the impossible. Now, over 1,700 athletes have achieved this milestone in the last 70 years. The moral of the story? It's only impossible until someone proves otherwise. You need one big win to show it can be done. The US has Apple, Microsoft, and Google. South Korea has Samsung. Japan has Toyota, Honda, and Nintendo. All started as an idea. All grew to be multi-billion-dollar companies. All it takes is one to show it can be done. Venture capital and government regulations. Never simple subjects, and I'm sure we could spend all day discussing the reasons why there is or isn't VC in Mexico, but the reality is that it ain't here. So what do we need to do to get moving? As much as I hate all the paperwork that you have to keep track of when forming a business, we definitely have a more streamlined system in the US than in most countries. And it's not there just to be a headache, but it simplifies the equity and stock distribution part of owning and running a startup. It's because of these regulations and laws that investors are more open to investing in the US-based startups. Currently, I have no solutions to these 2 problems today, but we'll continue to monitor it and see if we can find a workaround to entice more VC money to Mexico and streamline the government regulation process. So what do you think? Would a well-planned campaign to the government be beneficial? Would better marketing for the startups in Mexico attract more VC dollars? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and also where you think we should go next. And with that, we wrap up this episode. So until next time, Mexico, hasta luego.
La intención te ha estado ya de mí.